Hi, everybody. Thanks, Catherine, for introducing me. I'm Jackie MacArthur. I'm a research project manager in the BHF Data Science Centre, and I'm going to talk today about the work we've been doing on wearables. This is work that we've been doing in collaboration with Aidan Doherty, who's in Oxford. Just going to get my there. Okay, so the work towards the Data Science Centre's vision is organised into 6 thematic work streams, which I'm sure you've seen before, and one of these is around personal monitoring data. Personal monitoring data from wearable devices represents a huge wealth of unexploited information. There's estimated to be around 13 million users in the UK. And these devices collect information on a wide range of physiological traits, including physical activity, heart rhythm, and sleep patterns. And at the moment, this data isn't available for research and isn't available linked to health records. There's a number of reasons around that and challenges to making this data available. Mainly around, I've listed some of those there, mainly around privacy concerns, establishing consent, and linkage to health data sets. So our aim in this area is to create a population scale wearables data set with linkage to health records that can be used to support research into the causes and consequences of cardiovascular disease. So to kick off work in this area, we organised a workshop to bring together the community and explore how consumer wearables can be used to transform our understanding of cardiovascular disease. The aims of the workshop were to build consensus and create a community in this area, to identify the key areas of opportunity, look at the challenges, and discuss how we could build upon commercial activities in this space, and then to identify the next steps and how we could move forward in this area. There are approximately 75 workshop participants, and these were spread across the broad stakeholder space. So we did some stakeholder analysis, and then we looked to invite representatives from each of these groups, so health data science researchers, tools developers. There were representatives there from the major wearables and app developers and producers. We also had some lay members there that we recruited specifically to support our work in this area and attend the workshops, and also data custodians and policy advisors. So the workshop was organised around 3 topic sessions, which we had identified that we wanted to explore in detail around opportunities, representativeness and validity, and scaling up and linkage. The workshop had interactive breakout sessions within each of these topic sessions, where we used virtual whiteboards to gather input from all the participants. You can see here one of the whiteboards from one of these sessions. So we had 5 groups across to split the participants, and then within each of the sessions we had questions to prompt input, and you can see here that we had great engagement and rich input with lots of valuable ideas and views shared. Okay, so in the first session, which was the opportunity session, the main themes that came out and discussed in this session were around the opportunity that wearables present to think differently, and that wearables are able to collect different types of data, not only the types of data, but also the fact that the data is continuous. It's collected in a real world environment, and that it has increased granularity. We talked about the unique advantages that the UK presents with a single healthcare provider that covers the whole population throughout their whole lifetime. And also the wide-ranging research opportunities and impacts that this might have. So identifying risk factors and digital biomarkers, and improving clinical trials. And as I demonstrated in the previous slide that showed one of the whiteboards, there really was a huge amount of input. So this is kind of just pulling out the themes. In the representativeness and validity session, the discussion could be divided into two main areas. The first around participation of individuals. And I would say that in particular, the topic of creating a representative data set was one of probably the topic that created the greatest input and the most discussion from participants. And then recruiting and retaining individuals, and this was highlighted as being one of the major blockers to creating a data set and a cohort in this area. Ensuring that the incentives that are used to kind of get people to sign up and take part do not influence and bias the data. And then we also talked a bit about the size of the data set. Then the second kind of theme that came out of this area was around data validity and accuracy, ensuring data is comparable across devices and individuals, standards, validity, metadata, harmonization, and other topics around that kind of area. And then in the final session, we discussed scaling up and linkage and the challenges that this might involve. So we talked about linkage, using people's NHS number for that, obtaining consent, what privacy concerns or lack of public trust, and you know, the reasons people might have for not wanting to take part and not wanting to share their data. We talked about the logistics of scaling up and using big data and data at this scale, particularly the kind of detailed data that comes off these wearables devices, and the considerations of population scale research. Okay, so kind of pulling all this information together and thinking about how we could move this forward, really we came up with the fact that there's really two options for creating a cohort of wearables data. And there's pros and cons for each of these. Okay, so the two options are either to create a new cohort by recruiting existing wearables users. The advantage of this is that it's a large potential recruitment pool, you know, covering all wearables users across the UK. There's also the potential to access historical data when you access the data from somebody's wearable device. And then the other option is to augment an existing cohort with wearables data by providing a common device. So we're talking about an existing cohort such as UK Biobank. The advantage of this is that there's an increased recruitment response rate because you know, the individuals in these cohorts are already kind of part of the community. You get a much higher response rate when you try and recruit these into kind of new kind of obtaining additional information from these individuals. There's additional metrics or data sets that might be available that you could use alongside this wearables data. For example, kind of genomics data. However, you do have a limited cohort size and there's a limited time span of data capture generally. I just wanted to point out that neither of these two options are representative of the population as a whole for different reasons. I won't go into that further at the moment, but I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so rather than pursuing one of these options above the other, we've decided to take a two-pronged approach. However, in the first instance, we're exploring creating a new cohort of existing wearables users. We'll be supporting acquiring data from commonly used wearable devices such as Fitbit and Apple Watch. We'll be allowing users to provide consent electronically, for example, through an app on their smartphone. We'll then be pulling the data off the wearable devices and harmonizing the data across individuals and wearable devices, and we'll be accessing the data via the vendor's web API. We'll then be linking to health records using the NHS number. And I want to say, you know, I'm going to say, describing this as we will be doing this. Obviously, we don't have, we're currently exploring the way that we will be doing this, but this is really our vision and our aim. Okay, so what we're working on at the moment in our next steps is exploring potential routes for collaboration, looking at ways that we can pull the data off devices, harmonise and linking, different funding routes, and ways that we can obtain consent. We're also continuing to work with the lay members that we've recruited to support us in this area. In particular, again, as I mentioned earlier, thinking about how we can make this data set as representative as possible. Who might be willing to take part, and how might we best recruit? And in this recruitment, not bias the individuals that and the data that we're recruiting. Okay, so I wanted to acknowledge all workshop presenters and participants. Aidan, I mentioned that we've been working with in this area and really was behind kind of pulling together the community and the scientific direction of this workshop. Kathy, I wanted to acknowledge in this work, and all of the BHF Data Science Centre. And then you can see that we do actually exist in real life and not just as within Zoom calls. And also Tammy Watchorn that we worked with to run these workshops. Great, thank you. Any questions?